Let's talk about Britain. In the DNA of Britain is a kind of urge to secrecy. We like keeping secrets in this country. But with a view to that, we have a tradition where government papers, documents, after 20 years are released to the public in the interests of governmental transparency. Also, you tend to have members of the royal family in particular, but other prominent people, public figures. Their private documents and papers are often released after 5 years after their deaths. So it was expected that the late Queen and Prince Philip's papers would be released to the public in 5 years after their death, which would be 2026 and 2027. But there are increasing fears that we won't get to see much of these documents because talks are already underway in Whitehall about what should be kept under wraps. Now, my next guest knows all about this. He's an author, name's Andrew Lowney, who wrote a brilliant book about Lord and Lady Mountbatten. Lord Mountbatten, of course, the cousin of the Queen, the late Queen, who was killed in an IRA bombing attack. He had a long history, working with the government. He supervised the partition of India, many say with disastrous results. He wasn't, in the end, famed for his competence. But in those days, if you were royal, you got the big jobs. You got the important gigs. Anyway, Andrew fought a long 4-year battle, basically with the government, to get to see the personal diaries of Lord and Lady Mountbatten, which were under wraps, kept in under lock and key at Southampton University. Now, Southampton University didn't release them to Andrew on the advice of the Cabinet Office. The government went on to fight a £600,000 legal battle with Andrew. And the former Foreign Secretary, Lord Owen, and I have a lot of sympathy for this, called this legal battle a grotesque abuse of public money. Well, welcome to the show, royal commentator, historian, author Andrew Lowney. Thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Not at all. Pleasure. I mean, in fact, we did get the material released.
I know you did. I was about to say that.
Yeah. So eventually we got 33,000 pages released. But it cost me close to £500,000 personally fighting this case. So I think the government, who had top QCs, would have paid a lot more than that. Yeah. We actually have a case now where I'm trying to get access to the correspondence between Edwina and her lover, Nehru, who was the first Prime Minister of India. And that was bought at the same time with public monies to be seen by the public and still remains closed. So that battle hasn't been entirely won, I'm afraid.
So, I mean, at the root of this, it strikes me, is a certain fawning attitude, shall we say, the remnants of the class structure where we deliver to the rich, famous and indeed royals kind of privileges that the rest of us don't get, that somehow there's still an urge in Britain to protect, our society betters, the royals. And personally, I don't like that much.
Absolutely. I mean, the idea is it protects the dignity of the monarchy, but the dignity of the monarchy is protected by them actually behaving properly. I've just finished a book on Prince Andrew, and Prince Andrew was able to get away with all the things he did because he knew there would be no scrutiny. You're absolutely right. We do need changes. I mean, this is our history which is being played with. And in fact, the rules seem to be very unclear. I mean, even Andrew as a public servant, as the special representative for trade, we can't look at his material until 2065. There's material going back to the reign of Queen Victoria, which is closed. I've just done a book on the Duke of Windsor. Much of that material is still closed, going back over 100 years. The protection files from the 1920s relating to the Duke of Windsor, which are closed. And yet here we have members of the royal family writing books, appearing on television shows, briefing tame journalists and writers. The thing is ridiculous. I personally
they're still protecting the Duke of Windsor.
Absolutely.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
And further back, I mean, even further back than that. I mean, all royal wills are sealed, so we have no idea actually how they pass on their wealth. There's no register of royal interests, so we have no idea of the business activities of people like Prince Andrew. They operate through front men and often will disguise their names at Company's House. I had lunch today with someone who, in fact, was instructing them to actually be much more open about their financial investments and not hide them in offshore trusts. So, I mean, there is a lot that could be done. I think there needs to be an investigation into royal finances. We've had hints of it with Channel 4 and with the Sunday Times investigation, but there's an awful lot that still needs to be made clear. We pay for them, and they only really exist because of our support. And if they're going to earn that trust and respect, they have to be rather more open about how they operate.
And as I say, or as you said, you were largely successful in your battle over Lord Mountbatten's private papers. But why did the government, the Cabinet Office, waste? Or I would suggest waste, hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of taxpayers' money to protect the reputation of a man who's long dead? Is it because if you really go into his stewardship of the partition of India, it sort of proves him to be rather incompetent? Is it all about we cannot have royals seen as being incompetent?
Well, I think it's partly the deference that you talked about. I think partly it's trying to make an example of people like me who have the nerve to actually challenge this. What we discovered with these 33,000 pages of documents, which were only their private diaries, was it was all completely innocent. So
After all that,
it's about parking your tanks on the lawn to prevent, in some ways, more important things coming out. But I've got terrible problems at the moment getting access to anything relating to Prince Andrew's time as a trade envoy. There were literally thousands of documents produced by the diplomats. The Foreign Office don't have it. The Department of Trade don't have it. My understanding is this material may have been passed to Buckingham Palace and it's just filling up a corridor there. And I know, talking to sensitivity reviewers who review these documents, they're told basically any reference to the royal family, redact it and close it.
What is it that presumably the royals back this wall of secrecy that surrounds them and all their activities, but what is it they're frightened of? What is it that, in your view, that they don't want us to know?
Well, I mean, they have lots of secrets that they want to keep hidden. With Prince Andrew, it's clearly his activities, his financial activities. That's the real scandal for him, not the sexual activities. My book will be coming out shortly, and I will reveal another Chinese spy who's close to the Yorks.
He's got another one. He's got another one.
There's another one, absolutely.
Oh, my God.
And there may be others. But, the Duke of Windsor was a traitor to this country. That they covered up. They tried to suppress the information about that after the war, and they've continued to try and suppress it. Mountbatten was a paedophile who preyed on young boys. There's another case going through the High Court in Belfast at the moment. Another boy has come forward. And this is the stuff that they don't want out because, of course, it shakes at the monarchy. But my argument is that we've got lots of members of the royal family doing a good job, and they're undermined by these rogue royals who behave in a way knowing that they're not going to be caught because of this deference and this protection. I mean, the Freedom of Information Act doesn't even cover the royal family. They can do what they want.
And in your attempts to write a book about Prince Andrew, have you got a title, by the way?
Entitled.
Very good title. Entitled. Now, do you, when you do a book like this, did you actually approach him and say, right, how about you sit down and give me a big interview about all your activities? That way we can make it all fair and square and above board. Do you ask him that?
Yes, I mean, I'm always trying to be as balanced and fair and accurate as I can, and I want to give people an opportunity to not necessarily just talk themselves, but put people in touch who know them well and present a more balanced picture. He's actually, and it's a joint biography with him and his ex-wife, they didn't want to cooperate and they actually told people not to talk to me, which is, you kind of wonder why. So as a result, the narrative isn't shaped by them, it's shaped by the people I talk to, and it doesn't present a particularly attractive view.
Would it be possible, I would imagine the circumstances are different, but would it be, you're talking about papers and documents concerning Prince Andrew that you're not able to get access to, would it be possible for you to launch a similar legal action that you did to get the Mountbatten documents out of Southampton University? Could you attack someone legally to say you have to give me these documents?
I think it's quite hard. I mean, one of the problems under that 20-year rule is the material has not been deposited in the archives for lots and lots of people. Something like 80 or 90% of government files are destroyed with no record kept. So the rules aren't really being followed anyway for everyone else. The situation with Mountbatten was that was a decision by the information regulator, and the Cabinet Office in Southampton appealed against that. So we'd gone through a process. I think this can only come through sort of pressure from the courts, pressures from the media, and indeed parliamentary inquiries looking at the activities of the royal family, particularly their business activities.
Absolutely. And when he was Air Miles Andy, old Prince Andrew, flying around as an alleged trade deal, apparently a trade envoy, his first question wherever he went was, where's the nearest golf course? So his activities as a trade envoy were suspicious, to say the least. But when does Entitled, great name, when does that come out?
It comes out in a few months' time.
Well, when it does, will you come back on and we'll talk about it?
I'd be delighted to. Thank you.
Andrew, always good to have you on the show. Thank you very much. Fascinating stuff. Royal commentator, historian and author there, Andrew Lowney, fought a long battle with the government to get papers and documents about Lord Mountbatten and his wife, Lady Mountbatten. When he finally got them, the government, having spent like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds, £600,000 legal battle, they were innocent. What's that about? Kind of weird.